Hey, honey,
Yes, Barry?
let's get out of here.
Where are we going?
Where do we always go?
Este ritmo de palmas, sin naturaleza, hasta encontrar la playa. Por eso grito al mundo, yo soy de Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.
Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I'm your host, Barry Kessler, and I'm just so happy to be introducing you to my favorite vacation destination. Maybe it's even yours, and that's Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That music you're listening to is performed by Alberto Perez, and Alberto is the owner of the Lapa Lapa group of restaurants here. Those are the Lapa Lapa, Puerto Vallarta's oldest restaurant on the famous Los Muertos Beach, and the El Dorado Restaurant and Beach Club right next door. So you can enjoy that fantastic view of the Los Muertos Pier, all lit up at night in beautiful colors, or during the day in its grand splendor. For breakfast, lunch, or dinner, seated with your toes in the sand right at the water's edge. It's so romantic. It's so Puerto Vallarta, my friends. This week, I am going to introduce you to Anne-Marie Weiss Armush, and she is an expat from the United States. Now she's living in Puerto Vallarta, and she's making quite an impact in her neighborhood, helping local children and families in a very special way. She's going to tell us about the Vallarta Abuelos and the cultural tour of Vallarta Artisans that she does to raise money for her neighbors. But before we get to Anne-Marie, let's see what's happening this week in Puerto Vallarta, the 15th of November, 2019. If you remember last week, we talked with Edgar Rivas. Edgar is from Brewmaster Festival. And if you are in town this week, it's here. It's arrived Saturday the 16th and Sunday the 17th from 1 o'clock in the afternoon until 11:30 at night. You can drink, you can eat, you can dance, and enjoy yourselves. There will be over 100 varieties of beer, craft beer to be more precise. So don't miss it. It's over on the Quale Island, all the way in the back, over in the Cultural Center. Entry is free. The beer will cost you, however, even though you're just renting it. Mi Cafe did not open last weekend, but it is going to be open this weekend. At least that's what I've been told. That's what Alberto told me. They had some delays. Of course, it's Mexico. Things happen that way. So double check, okay, just to be sure. I don't want to have anybody angry at me or at Alberto for that matter. If you are not into beer, and let's say that tacos are your game, there is going to be a taco festival. It's the third annual taco festival in Puerto Vallarta. It's also on Saturday the 16th and Sunday the 17th. The festival will be featuring 18 different taquerias, cooking up our favorite tortilla-wrapped delicacies. The fun starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it goes till 11 in the evening. You will find this taco festival at the Municipal Stadium next door to the Sheraton. There will be a special guest. Lady Tacos de Canasta will be there. She's from Mexico City. The Taco Lady. Actually, the Taco Lady is legally named Francisco Marvin. And even though on social media she's known as Lady Tacos de Canasta or Basket Taco Lady, she introduces herself as Marvin. She's 33 years old, wears a big smile, has long black braids, rides a blue bicycle, drinks mezcal, and has a really great time. I have a video of him, whichever, in the show notes. So if you go to the taco festival, you got to make sure that you look for Marvin, the Taco Lady. And speaking of tacos, a Guinness Book of World Records record was just set for the world's largest carnitas taco. From Mexico News Daily, let's read Querétaro, Mexico, dated November 11th, 2019, the state of Querétaro earned the Guinness World Record for the world's biggest carnitas taco on Sunday, stretching an entire city block. The enormous taco measured 102 meters long and weighed in at 1,200 kilograms of tortillas, 1,507 kilograms of seasoned pork meat. The organizer of the event, Alejandro Paredes Resendez, said it began in 2011 when he made a promise to his uncle, the head of the Querétaro Gastronomical Council, that he would make the world's largest carnitas taco. He researched the most consumed food product in the state and found that it was carnitas. I recognize that there are other states in the country, like Michoacan, where they make delicious carnitas, but here in Querétaro, there are 7 different styles, he said. He said the Guinness Organizing Committee had declined 5 previous applications for the record, waiting until event organizers had fulfilled all the requirements necessary to qualify for a world record. We used certified workers with a history in Querétaro, said Resendez. We complied with all the regulations of the Guinness contract. All the carnitas were made today. Everyone had the proper equipment. And most importantly, we shared the food with all who attended. The event took 8 months of planning, utilized local carnitas producers, and gathered 15,000 people to witness the spectacle and then to eat the results. Guinness World Records does not award money as a prize, but Resendez said that any money earned as a result of the record will be donated. If we earn even 1 peso, it will be donated to DIF, Family Service Center, because Querétaro should be the best state in Latin America, he said. For Resendez, the achievement was not only a world record, but also a personal best. I broke my own record because the last taco I made was 75 meters long. It was registered but not certified. I hope that all 15,000 people can eat. We began at 6 in the morning, and we won't go home until the volunteers feed the visitors until the taco is gone, he said. Carnitas are made by cooking the different parts of the pig in a giant copper or stainless steel pot. The meat is traditionally seasoned with a mineral salt called tequeseque, but there are many different regional varieties. And I have a link to that article in the show notes, of course. The 25th edition of the International Gourmet Festival is going to take place from November 19th through the 24th in Puerto Vallarta and along the bay. Some of the host restaurants of the Gourmet Festival, that International Gourmet Festival, will include Azafran Restaurant and Bar, Barrio Bistro, Café de Artistas, Coco Tropical, El Dorado, Emiliano, Hector's Kitchen, Iku, Kaiser Maximilian, La Terraza de Rima, Lapa Lapa, Le Cliff, River Cafe, Stars, Trio, Tuna Blanca, and many others. The first International Gourmet Festival was held, as we remember, back in 1995, and it was the brainchild of renowned European chefs Thierry Blouet and Heinz Reyes. 5 years later, they were joined by another great chef, Roland Menetre, and the trio would gain fame as Puerto Vallarta's culinary Three Musketeers. Let's see here. The original format of the festival remains unchanged. Each participating restaurant invites a celebrity from the world of culinary arts so that diners enjoy this extraordinary fusion of chef and destination. And for more information on the International Gourmet Festival, please visit www.festivalgourmet.com. I have a link to it and to this article in the show notes. L'Angolo de Napoli is open for lunch, and I am extremely happy about that. Up till now, they had just been strictly an evening place, open from 5 o'clock until closing, I believe, but now they're going to be open during lunch hours. Let me read from their Facebook page. New lunch at L'Angolo de Napoli. We will now be in full service from 11 in the morning until 3 p.m. with a lunch menu, and our regular dinner menu from 3 p.m. until 11 p.m. We also deliver. So, That's wonderful. I am so happy. Stop and see Agostino and Ali and have some really great Italian food for lunch or dinner. That's great. And we can't be talking Puerto Vallarta news without talking about foreign residents coming in. There's going to be more than 30,000 foreign residents pouring in to Puerto Vallarta during the winter period. They will stay an average of 3 months in residential homes and in condos owned by the winter traveler or rented through an online platform, according to Ramon Gonzalez Lomelli, Municipal Director of Tourism. Lomelli noted that this year there were security situations, sadly, for some destinations and favorable for Puerto Vallarta, a destination strengthened as a number one travel option. We've been talking and planning strategies. We have been working all this year just to work on the negative image generated by some parts of Mexico. The first was insecurity. The second was the sargassum. Fortunately, he said, Puerto Vallarta has been recognized as a very safe place, which has allowed an important number of foreign residents to remain in the city for extended times. Starting November, he said that a large number of foreign tourists have been seen to arrive, and even hotel occupancy is around 62%, which has surpassed by condominium occupation that's currently above 80%. Right now, condominium residential offerings have generated such interest that we already have many foreigners in Puerto Vallarta. And if last year we reached 33,000 foreign residents during most of the 5 or 6 month season, now I think we're going to exceed that because every day we're increasing the offer of condominiums. Lomelli insisted that many long-stay tourists are arriving at the destination, and many of the snowbirds range between ages of 45 and 60 years of age, with very good economic potential. For this reason, currently, you can see in restaurants in the Emiliano Zapata neighborhood a large influx of foreign visitors, mainly from the United States and Canada, and not only in this area, but the same situation could be seen in the marina as well. In this context, Gonzalez Lomelli pointed out that although last year at this time the hotel occupation was almost 80 percentage points, today it's lower. The reality is that the destination in general is around 85% occupied. This, insisted, derived from the high number of visitors staying in condominiums and residential homes. The report is positive for Puerto Vallarta, and especially because the winter travelers are largely outside of the all-inclusive hotels. These people go out and consume in the town, being an economic advantage for all sectors of the city. Finally, he said that undoubtedly Puerto Vallarta will live a splendid winter season because we are all very presumptuous in the fact that everything is safe and everything is very clean, and it's giving us a very good incentive, he concluded. All right, so very, very interesting. Welcome to all of you U.S. and Canadian visitors to Puerto Vallarta. You snowbirds seem to be arriving in force. All right, well, let's get to this interview, shall we? All right, if you listen to the podcast, you already know that we talk with all sorts of people on the show, from local Puerto Vallarta natives to, the expats from all over the world. Mostly these people are from the United States and from Canada, but yeah, from all over the world, that's for sure. Many of these people that we meet, they're looking to retire, to live the easy life on the beach, sipping margaritas and pina coladas. And there are others that do a little more than that. They get involved with the local community one way or another, volunteering at local orphanages, beautifying the city, through, the garden club, giving back, helping raise funds for the library, Biblioteca Los Mangos, and so forth. We've met a lot of different people here, haven't we? They all seem to be doing their part, giving back in their own special ways. Well, this lady that you're about to meet, she has taken this giving back to the community to a whole another level, if you know what I mean. Her name is Anne-Marie Weiss Armush, and she represents a group known as the Vallarta Abuelos. And she'll explain what the Abuelos do. But abuelos is the word for grandparents in Spanish. And the Abuelos here in Vallarta raise money for the neighbor children here that are in need. What I loved most about the conversation that I had here with Anne Marie is that she really takes us into the lives of Mexican families, the people in Puerto Vallarta, who we, as tourists and snowbirds and residents and expats, we interact with them on a daily basis. But Anne Marie talks about the special challenges that these parents have in order to make ends meet, and about the struggle that they go through in order to educate their children. Now, I don't want to tell you the whole story. I want Anne Marie to tell you all about it. So let's go right now to the Cinco de Diciembre neighborhood of Puerto Vallarta, and to a lovely home sitting on a corner where the door is open and where hope abounds. And let's meet the lady herself, Anne Marie Weiss Armush from Vallarta Abuelos and the cultural tour of Vallarta Artisans. Anne Marie, thanks for coming on the show.
Good afternoon. Nice to be with you, Barry.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and what was your path that led you to Puerto Vallarta?
I was actually born in the cornfields of Missouri, in central Missouri, but lived 11 years in the Middle East.
Oh.
And in 1968 to 69, I had a Fulbright scholarship to Mexico City. Now, that doesn't mean much probably to you and most Americans, but 68 was the year of student protests all over the globe. And in October of 68, Mexico City hosted the Olympics. So it was an extremely important year for Mexico and for me.
Yeah, wow, what an experience. Did you get a chance to see any of the Olympic Games?
Actually, I was supposed to be researching at UNAM, the National University, and the name of the university is National Autonomous University, which means the professors there are free to teach without any fear of censorship or political reprisals, but the tanks were sent by the government for the first time in Mexico's history to stop the students from protesting. And so the year did not go as I expected.
Yeah.
But instead, I was alone in a city of 8 million people, and I became an Olympic tour guide, cultural guide, and volunteered at a children's hospital, taught English, the kind of things that students do in their college years when they're in a foreign country.
Wow.
Actually, by profession, I was a Spanish teacher.
Oh,
but
wow.
I married a Syrian and went to live and raise our family in Saudi Arabia and Syria, and there wasn't much demand for teaching Spanish in the Middle East. Then back to Dallas for 30 years, where I founded a nonprofit, the community-based nonprofit, and then here to Vallarta. So I really feel more like an international rather than someone from Missouri or from Dallas.
Right. Well, yeah, you are no just regular person from Missouri. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Well, I think anyone who has traveled and seen new perspectives on life really returns to their home base with a different view of things, with a much wider understanding and more possibilities.
Yeah.
Less limitations from culture, the local culture, because they've absorbed beautiful bits and pieces of the other cultures where they've lived. And that's why I think Vallarta has appealed to so many of us, because we just sense something unique and different, warm, very much people-based, humane, kind and welcoming. And that's part of the reason that so many of us have moved to Mexico, and in particular to Vallarta.
Yeah. So you were in Mexico City to begin with. That's where you were teaching as well. So how did you discover Vallarta?
When I was 13 in Missouri, the Ballet Folklorico de Amalia Hernandez came to perform at the university of our little farm town, and my mom and I fell in love with it. I started to learn Mexican songs. She said, learn Spanish? Next summer we're driving to Mexico. So I was 14, two younger kids in the car, and mom driving. It took 5 days to reach Mexico City. There were no ACs in those days, Barry. You don't remember those days. It's darn hot crossing Texas in June, and Nuevo León, and down to Mexico City. But what we discovered was so beautiful, so exciting, so appealing that we all fell in love with Mexico. So we would literally save every penny during the year, and whenever possible, every 2 years we could afford it, we would drive to Mexico again and explore Oaxaca, explore San Luis, Querétaro, Veracruz, Puebla. Every town in Mexico is so special and has great appeal for me personally. So when I retired, sort of, instead of inviting my kids to come for Thanksgiving in my Dallas home, I said, hey, let's go to Mexico every Thanksgiving. So we would meet in Mexico, 1 year San Miguel, 1 year Mexico City, 1 year Oaxaca. And 1 year our Thanksgiving was here in Vallarta, and we felt the very first day, all of us, that it was a very livable town. Lots of services for seniors, an environment that knew how to deal with the physical needs of Westerners, a Costco, and now we have La Comer. So, and excellent doctors and economical costs of medical care, which I think are extremely important to those of us who are retirees.
Yeah, absolutely. So, where you seem to have settled here in the Cinco de Diciembre neighborhood. How long have you been in Vallarta?
3 years.
Okay, all right. This part of the neighborhood is pretty busy. Is there a school nearby? Is that what I'm hearing, or is it just so?
There's a school
bustling?
3 blocks away. But actually what you're hearing is the rooftop restaurant directly across the street from my house. And this traditionally was a center for Mexican tourism. When I first came to Vallarta, I don't remember there being any zona romantica. I don't remember much there. It all centered around Cinco de Diciembre. I think the road even probably ended here, the road from the north and the beach resorts. So there are many small Mexican family-owned hotels in this neighborhood and beautiful beach. And so for me, someone who wanted to live in Mexico, not in the tourist part of town, but I wanted to spend the last part of my life living here as a Mexican with my Mexican neighbors, also my American friends. It had great appeal for me. It's a very unique neighborhood. What's interesting, I think, to your listeners is now that prices have jumped up, have skyrocketed in the Centro, for certain reasons I know you've covered in other podcasts. Well, this is the area that's directly to the north of the Zona Romantica. So real estate, it's your area, your location is the most important. So people who can no longer afford to stay or to live or to visit in the Centro are now coming to this area. So again, value, costs of land, houses has skyrocketed here. It's still a bargain though, and you can still find some inexpensive places to rent or to purchase.
Nice, yeah. I just love this neighborhood, and actually I got on my knee and proposed to my wife at the restaurant that's not there anymore, but it's near the top of Calle Panama. And that was over 30 years ago. So so you're right. I mean, this was kind of it's where all the great restaurants were actually at the time.
Right. I love walking down the street to the market, to the fish market, talking to my neighbors, greeting people, greeting someone who I've never met before. It's a person-to-person contact we don't have in the United States.
Yeah, that's for sure. And a smile goes a long way down here, doesn't it?
Absolutely, especially if you don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
But luckily I do. And that's opened so many areas that bring joy and also satisfaction.
Yeah. Well, you are very active in the community here, and you I don't want to say, you seem to attract people who or looking for maybe some guidance and some help, it seems to me. I mean, I see people came to your door while we're sitting here. What's that all about? What are you doing here?
I bought an old, very large house that had been someone's vacation home. They were a very wealthy family. They only visited a couple weeks a year. They kept the door shut all the time. I did not want my neighbors to look at me and think, oh, that's where the quote-unquote rich gringa lives. So my door is always open. The gate, of course, is closed, but the wooden door is open. I love when my neighbors pass by and smile or wave. I've actually installed a garrafon, a water fountain for drinking in front of the door, as we did in the Middle East, where water is considered God's blessing, and anyone who gives water to a traveler is going to win grace with God. So I looked at all the children to whom I'd given bikes. 92 kids in this neighborhood have received bikes so far.
Wait a minute. Hold on. We're going to talk about that.
We will get there.
Wow, okay.
But the kids are hot, and people walking to the bus, and workers. So I installed a garrafon, a water cooler that is accessible from the street. So I wanted my neighbors to look at me as a member of the community and somebody who wants to give back. But I realize I'm not the only Westerner who feels this way. There are people who are planting trees, greenery all over, even the main plaza in front of the city hall. It's very admirable. There are people who are picking up dogs and finding them new homes in Canada or in the U.S. What I didn't see much of was people helping people, especially children. And so I decided that was an area where maybe I could make a small difference, my little grain of sand, and to help Westerners, Canadians, and Americans find a way that they could do the same. Whether they just wanted to buy a Christmas gift for a poor child, or they wanted to buy uniforms, a little more expensive, because it's very costly to send a child to school here, or whether they wanted to do a little bit something additional. So that's how Vallarta Abuelos was born. Abuelos means grandparents. We don't have our grandparents here living with us. Mm-hmm. You know, they're far away. And so if we can help a local child by buying a bicycle or riding on bikes with him or taking him to the movies or inviting him over to swim in our pool or giving him a Christmas gift, it's an opportunity to bridge the gap between those very kind-hearted visitors or expats who want to do something for kids, but really didn't know how to do that.
Yeah. So you can organize them to do that.
Right.
So let's talk about those. You want to talk about those bikes?
Sure.
Okay.
Well,
what's going on with that?
Last Christmas, one little boy sitting in the chair right over there that you're looking at, a week before Christmas, told me he was not going to get anything for Christmas. And I was so upset. His mom told him, there's no Christmas this year. And the other children, many of them said the same thing. So very quickly we put together Christmas bags. Now here Christmas runs through January 6th, Day of the Three Kings. So we actually had 2 weeks there. And we gave Christmas gifts to 85 children, pairing them one by one, knowing that Joselito is 12. He's not 5, okay? Mm-hmm. And Martita is 3. So the gifts that they received were actually bought. They were age appropriate. Some of the kids received bicycles, and we saw what a difference that made. Most of the children are what we call street kids. This doesn't mean that they live on the street. It means if they have a mom, she works. She may leave for her job at 7 in the morning and get home at 8 at night. The child goes to school alone without having breakfast and comes back and is on the street all day long. By having a bike, the child could have a more normal childhood, explore in healthy manners, and also be of assistance to his mom in running errands and get to school on his bike rather than having to pay the bus fee. 10 pesos to go to school and 10 pesos to return. That's $1.
Yeah.
In a country where the minimum wage is $5 a day, having a bike is really something very special. So to date, we've given away 92 bicycles.
Wow. Incredible. That's fantastic. I noticed when I walked in that you have a Dia de los Muertos altar set up there, and you were telling me a little something about that. You wanna explain what's going on there?
We have a club we call the BC Boys that meets at my house every day from 4 to 6. It started in the summer when I saw dozens of children alone on the streets with nothing to do. And some little ones started getting into trouble. One 6-year-old was caught smoking marijuana. So I opened my house to be a safe place every afternoon. And this is how I really got to know a lot of the children individually. One young couple, a brother and sister, she's 13 and he's 12, told me their mom had cancer, stomach cancer, metastasized, which is very tragic news. They have no relatives here. Wow. So we started helping them. A week ago, we moved them into a decent apartment close to their friends and their friends' parents who could provide transportation while the mom was in the hospital, could feed them, could guide them. These are 2 small children, 12 and 13 on their own. And the mother died on Monday. We all attended the velorio, the wake. But now these children are alone. So while we are planning we found the father. He has appeared to see what their future will be and how we can help keep them in school. I thought, I usually create a Day of the Dead altar to my parents. It makes me feel good. They were in the Army, both of them, and it's good for my children, too, to remember their grandparents when they were young and how much they gave to their country and how they faced obstacles and overcame them. So this is good for all kids, I believe, but especially for these 2 who lost their mother last Monday.
Yeah.
So instead of doing an altar to my parents, I decided to open it up to all the children in the BC Club. They're all invited to bring a photo of grandpa, a great uncle, and put it on this large Day of the Dead altar. And then maybe we'll have a little ceremony when we're closer to the date. But this is really part of the therapy for those 2 kids who are grieving this great trauma. They're alone now, 12 and 13 years old.
Yeah.
And
wow.
just lost their mother.
Imagine that, you guys. Just imagine that.
It really does take a village,
Yeah.
especially here in Mexico where poverty is a huge issue. It's easy for us to say, why aren't those children in school? But if dad is making 200 pesos a day or the minimum wage of 100 pesos, sending children to school where a uniform costs $100, a school bag, school fees, transportation, it can easily cost 2 weeks' full salary to register an elementary school child in school. So it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So rather than just saying, well, that child should be in school, since I have nonprofit background and several of the other ladies did as well, we decided to organize a school bag project. And we were able to give 185 children school bags filled with supplies and 175 additional bags of supplies to other kids.
Wow.
And sponsor 10 children who would have dropped out because they were in junior and senior high, where fees are very hefty. They couldn't pay the fees. They couldn't pay for their books. So they are now in school, 10 children. It's a small number, but it's a start.
Yeah.
At the same time, one of our committee members came to us and said, well, I work with the USA English School in Cinco de Diciembre. Would you like some scholarships for the kids, the street kids, to learn English? 10 are now studying free. They realize English is the key to a better life, a better job in the future. But another English school heard about this and offered me 10 more scholarships. This is the American English Tree, which is over by Plaza Caracol. So 20 children are now studying English free. Wow. So bit by bit, opportunities do appear.
Yeah.
And we have the team there. I send out a message and see who's interested in buying a pair of shoes for this barefoot child who can't go to school because he doesn't have shoes. Easy for the sponsor and very rewarding for all of us.
Sure. Absolutely.
Of course, Christmas is coming.
Yeah, so what do you got planned?
350 kids are waiting for Santa.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to do what you did last time and, have a list and get age-appropriate gifts and all that other good stuff.
I think a list is essential.
Yeah.
This in the past, when we've done this sort of thing back in our states, our cities where we originally lived, we've learned you must have a list with the child's name. Otherwise, it's very disappointing to a child who receives a gift that's for a toddler.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
in some cases, we can even talk to the child and ask what he needs. Or if it's a 13, 14, 15-year-old, gosh, those are tough.
Yeah.
So we're going to do an angel tree that we would call our Abuelos angel tree. And, for example, if you wanted to adopt a child, you could come get his information. Take him out shopping. He would like a
cool.
soccer ball and a new pair of soccer shoes. And that one-on-one interaction is even more beneficial for the sponsor, the abuelo, than it is for the child. But both benefit by getting to know someone, different age, different culture. It's not really about the gift. It's about the contact.
Yeah, what a cool idea that is.
And if someone lives elsewhere, is not local, we'll have a GoFundMe page, or you can use PayPal. Send me a donation for one child. I think it'll be $20 to buy a gift for a child. And we can even tell you the name of the child you were assigned to. And the committee then will
They'll take them
care of
shopping,
that.
right?
Yeah.
They'll
And we'll
take
have Santa.
Or her.
We've already ordered our Santa costume. Yeah.
Wow.
So it'll be fun for us, too. We always want to do something for locals. But I didn't see anything similar. There's no Salvation Army here. So by giving people a system, a nonprofit that's registered, that can even give a tax receipt, we felt this met a local need that hadn't been addressed yet.
Excellent. You do some tours around here, don't you?
Every Thursday I do a cultural tour of Vallarta. We go to speak with 10 artisans. No one had been doing this either, and it was another way that I could give back and share my passion. I'm Italian. I can't help it, okay?
You know what? But she's not talking with her hands right now, which is
Oh,
good.
yes.
Now she's using her opposing hand.
When I renovated this house, which is a 5-bedroom house that had not been touched since it was constructed 18 years before, I met extraordinary wood carvers, iron workers, stained glass artisans as fine as those you would find in Italy. And these are treasures of the local culture that no one knew about.
Yeah.
So on Thursday mornings, I do cultural tour of Vallarta artisans. You can find us on Facebook, as you can find Vallarta Abuelos on Facebook. And 100% of the funds raised by that go to buy bicycles for the kids.
Nice.
But it's also a way for people to meet the owners, the artisans of shops that they probably walked past.
Yeah.
And, I didn't know what it was. So I take them in to meet Miguel Orozco, the guy who made the fabulous stained glass up in my window, designed after windows in Morocco and Andalusia.
Oh, wow.
There are local artists, not painters, artists who do beadwork, embroideries, who make huaraches in the style the Indians wore when Cortez landed in Veracruz. And so it's so exciting to be able to introduce visitors or residents to them and talk a bit about Mexican culture. For example, I've sat by the cathedral, the church, forgive me, it's a church, not a cathedral, and heard the local tour guides talk about the church, but no one gets into the Virgin of Guadalupe, which is key to understanding the Mexican people.
Absolutely.
So we start there and we talk about the impact of a brown-skinned virgin and the Catholic Church's goal in Catholicizing, etc., etc. That's culture. Food is culture, but that's been addressed by other tours. Okay? But everything to me is culture if the street has been repaired. Okay? The level of rain that we received yesterday in our storm, Day of the Dead, and especially these wonderful artisans who have kept alive traditions that have been Mexican for centuries. They may not be part of the real estate boom or the tourism market, but they are the essence of Mexico and what I love about Mexico. So that's Thursday mornings.
Okay. And how many places do you visit?
We visit 10.
10. All right. Wow.
The Talavera factory downtown, where you can have any type tile made that you desire. A stained glass artist, an herrero. To me, an herrero is an iron worker. Okay, they make horseshoes, right? No, they are extraordinary artists. There are wood carvers, there are huaraches makers, embroiderers, huichol Indians. So a great variety of artists. And on the tour, you get to meet the person who made the items in the shop and support them rather than buying commercial merchandise. You know, you're helping the artist keep his traditional work alive.
Yeah. And which is, in many cases, it's a dying art, so.
Absolutely. And you can also learn how the art has developed and changed. Recently, for example, we visit a shop that makes milagros. When I first came to Mexico, we would go in the churches and see that the saints were dressed in clothing. That was very strange to me. I was Catholic, but I'd never seen that. And hanging on the clothing were little medals, a leg, a heart. One of our artisans makes art out of these medals. So I told them the story of how if someone had, I have arthritis problems. Okay, so I would have purchased a little metal leg, and I would have pinned it to the saint's robes. And then when the saint took my message to God, and I was feeling better and I could walk more surely, I would do something to thank the saint. I would make a mini pilgrimage, or I would give a gift to the church, etc. Or I would paint a little on wood, a little picture of me and my leg and tell the story. And so these artists have taken that and create a different level of art from the same traditional milagros.
Oh, wow. Oh, how cool is that? So which days are those again?
Those are Thursday mornings. Meet in front of the church on the main square. 10 till 10. We start walking at 10.
Okay.
Not hora mexicana.
Okay, no, get there on time.
Walk at 10. So
right.
Come early.
Be there early.
Right.
And
it costs 300 pesos, and all of the funds raised by bicycles.
Okay, and that's very, very reasonable. It's $15 US. And also, in listening to Anne-Marie, you can understand that this tour is just not, hey, here it is like this. You can actually tell that she's going to tell you the whole story, and you'll be able to understand her, too, which is really pretty cool.
Also, as we walk around, of course, we talk about Vallarta and how it has grown and what's happening in the downtown area, et cetera, things that maybe couldn't be said on the radio, but all questions that I'm able to find an answer to, be glad to share with you why it's such a safe town, why we all feel so comfortable living in this beautiful city.
Yeah. Are there any other programs you want to talk to me about?
I would love to talk more about Vallarta Abuelos.
Let's go for it.
And the needs of children. When I was researching for the cultural tour, of course I went to Wikipedia. I read the Puerto Vallarta page. And I noticed the last section on the page is poverty. I was surprised to see that. And it's really true, but if you are a tourist, you don't really understand the impact that poverty has on the people that are serving you your meal, are pumping your gas, have cleaned the pool that you're enjoying. And so I tried to learn more, and I read many books about what's happening currently in Mexico. What surprised me more than anything was the cost of education. there are shifts here in Mexico. Each school is used for 2 shifts of students, from 8 to 12:30 and from 1:30 or 2 until 6:30, and sometimes a third shift. Well, that's an indication that there's insufficient funding from the federal government for children. And then I saw the prices of school bags. School bag is 500 to 1,000 pesos. Right. If the minimum wage set by our new president was raised to $5 a day or less than 100 pesos, how can a parent afford to send a child to school and buy a school bag that costs 500 and up, and a uniform, and a sports uniform, and sports shoes, and regular black shoes for school? This poverty level that we were unaware of has kept hundreds of Vallarta kids from going to school. They also have to pay fees, even at the elementary school level, because there's insufficient money from the federal government. These are in public schools. Mm-hmm. And junior and senior high kids have to also cover their bus fees. Well, $1 a day for a bus is a lot when the father's only making $5 a day, or even $10 a day. So that was very, very surprising to me. I know we all agree that education is the key to the future. We don't want, especially these young girls, dropping out after 6th grade because they can't afford to continue in school. What is their future? Well, it's obvious. They will quickly become pregnant, and the cycle continues. So our goal is to keep as many kids as we can in school by supporting whatever they may need. But as kids come to my house and start telling me their stories, this is what's truly heartbreaking. Yesterday evening, the ladies of the Virgin of Guadalupe prayed in front of the little shrine that's part of my house that the original builders built into the corner. And one of the ladies stayed afterwards. And she told me that her great-nephew is going to have to drop out of school because his father owes 1,500 pesos in his high school fees. 1,500 pesos, $75. That's a lot of money per semester. He can't afford it. So the child is going to drop out, which is heartbreaking. Yeah. This is a very, very bright boy who's living in difficult circumstances. So I thought, okay, let me see what we can do to try and find a sponsor. So it's one by one meeting the needs of children. Another very bright high school student couldn't pay for his books. So we covered that. Incidentally, I sat down with him and I was showing him Google Earth. Mm-hmm. I'm also teaching them computer. So we thought it would be fun for everybody to look up their homes. But what an eye-opener for me. He lives in a house that has no windows or doors. The structure is there. I knew that he and his brother and parents slept in one room, but I hadn't realized he was that poor. Yet this family is extremely dedicated to education. They will do whatever it takes. So I'm really getting to understand some of the special needs of the children in this neighborhood. My next door neighbor is a social worker, and she introduced me to a little boy who has special needs. His wonderful parents, 2 teachers, work daily with him and a caseworker. He can now read and write. He's 8 years old. And his caseworker asked if they could get access to a laptop because there are programs on DVD that would be very good for him to do at home. Of course, a laptop is simply impossible for them. So one of our abuelos has purchased at Costco an inexpensive laptop so this boy can keep studying and reach his potential. So these are just individual efforts, but I'm delighted to be the bridge that has made it possible for these children to continue studying.
Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. We don't really think about the cost of school because in the States, if you're not going to a private school, you're going to a public school, and it's paid for.
And you get a free lunch.
And you get a free lunch.
And in many
right.
places,
and breakfast too.
A free breakfast.
Yeah.
Here, the children that I work with don't have breakfast at home. So they go to school at 8 in the morning, and there's a lunch break at 10 in which the children, I'm just learning this because of the boy that now lives with me. At 10, they go out and they buy their lunch breakfast on the street. So there's an additional cost, but they don't have money to eat at school. So they won't eat, many of them, till they get home after school at 1 or 2.
Wow. And that's not good for learning.
Not good for learning at all. One boy yesterday told me, yes, his breakfast was eggs. I said, but you don't eat that before you go to school? No, he said, I have eggs at 2 when I'm home from school, and I have beans in the evening. That's my supper, when there is supper. So most days there are many kids that are eating here. And we don't think about that either. We don't realize the pressure on a single mom who's working and trying to hold things together, but who's going to take care of her 8-year-old or her 10-year-old during the day while she's at work, trying to keep that child in school.
Yeah.
So every little bit I think that the Abuelos can do is an opportunity to give back to the city that we really love so much and has opened its arms to us. Even though back home we are not always opening our arms to Mexicans and other immigrants and refugees these days. But we can do a better job than that here, giving back to the people that we really love.
Yeah, definitely. All right. What did I hear you say about a child who's living here?
Some children at home as well live in extremely difficult circumstances. Child abuse, unfortunately, is a factor of life for many, many children around the world and in our country as well. And I know in Dallas, a major problem was grandmothers raising their grandchildren after the mothers disappeared, not even to talk about fathers. And in circumstances like this, we understand that child abuse can be the result. Father, if he's raising the kids alone, drinks too much, etc., etc. So I met a pair of children, 10 and 12 years old, a 10-year-old boy, a 12-year-old girl, who had no food ever. So for 6 months, the Abuelos fed them, bought their school supplies, etc. And then apparently they were no longer living with the father. They were living somewhere else. And the situation became unexpectedly nasty. And the boy was sent out to work at age 10. And one day last week, 2 weeks ago, he refused to give the money he'd earned to the man he was living with. He was going to feed himself. He hadn't eaten. It was lunchtime. He was going to buy some tacos. And he said no to the abuser. And the abuser kicked him out. He said, either you give me the money, because you're living with me, or you go find another place to live. So he came to me. It's very important to respect not only local culture, but local law. So immediately I contacted Child Protective Services, which is DIF here, and met with them. The family had been reported 4 times in the past. The Pink Patrol had been to the house. That's the police patrol that deals with women and children. And so temporarily, perhaps temporarily, maybe for a long period of time, the child is now living with me. So I hope it will be a good placement for him. When children have been abused, we usually find other issues, and I will do my best to help this boy. But maybe there will be others. So, back to the story I didn't finish. Yesterday, one of the ladies of the Virgin asked me to help her great nephew, who actually she was asking if he could come and live with me because the father could not pay for his school fees, hoping that I would cover his school fees and he would be able to continue studying and graduate from high school because he's a very bright boy who loves school and he loves learning English. So that was unexpected. But we'll see what the local laws and the Child Protective Service suggest in this situation, what the father and the child would like. Because always we should be respectful of their needs. But when they cannot pay for the school, let's explore some options to help the child. What would be the best situation for him? Did we talk about the 2 children who lost their mother this week?
Yeah, because of the altar?
Yeah, right. So again, let's see how we can support the family. What placement? The children would like to stay here. They're in good schools. But what plan does the family have? At least now they have some others that perhaps can lend a hand if there are financial issues. And of course, therapy for children who've been abused or who lost their mother is really crucial. Something that, of course, no one could afford that on the low salaries they're making. It's not even considered. So we'll see what we can do, one by one. It does take a village to raise a child, and it's more than just talking here where economic opportunities are so limited.
Well, that's I'm blown away. I got to tell you, Anne-Marie.
Well, to be honest, Barry, I'm blown away too. I did not plan to spend my retirement years in this way. I wanted to give back. I thought, yes, by doing the cultural tour and organizing toy drive at Christmas, that would be something I could manage.
Yeah.
I never thought that one or more children might be living in my home.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to get back to Abuelos and all that other good stuff. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you a couple things that I ask everybody, and that is what your favorite places to eat are. So we ask everybody what their favorite breakfast, lunch, and dinner places are. And so you get, so Tag, you're it. What do you like for breakfast?
I do love Viteas. I think it's the best restaurant in the Centro, right on the beach. And here in the Cinco de Diciembre neighborhood, I like El Andariego. It reminds me of Spain, of being in a bistro in Barcelona. But to be honest, I don't eat out much because I lived in the Middle East for 11 years. And in that part of the world, a woman cooks 3 times a day. I wrote 2 cookbooks that are available on Amazon. They're real cookbooks, Middle Eastern cookbooks. Yeah. So I just got in the habit of cooking. It's also much less expensive. Not to mention, if I have 2 or 3 at the table, I can add a few more potatoes or rice and feed more children. Right. But I do enjoy cooking, so I don't eat out very frequently. I would like to.
You're one of those. Huh?
Yeah, one of those.
We got kids. You got kids. I got kids at home. I can't go and do that.
Come over. Last night we had patatas bravas, Spanish potatoes with red peppers and sausage.
Nice. Okay. Look at you. All right, so we'll have links to your books, if you don't mind, in the show notes, if that's okay. Is that all right?
Actually, I've just finished another book, which is a collection of quotes from Mexico. I do not see anything available to us. If maybe you don't have much time to read about Mexico, but the quote, what did Emiliano Zapata say? Do you know? I knew 2 of his quotes, but I learned this was really a great guy. And there's so many others like him. The figures in history that you are covering in your podcast, but maybe we don't want to read history. So this book is 540 quotes from Mexico in English. One thing that Emiliano Zapata is known for, a phrase, is tierra y libertad, land and liberty. Very simple, a good message. And the other that comes to mind is, es mejor morir a pie que vivir de rodillas. It's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. So this collection is called Hope, Wisdom from Mexico, and it'll be available on Amazon in a couple of weeks. I'm in the process of setting that up right now, and all proceeds go to Vallarta Abuelos to keep kids in school.
Nice. Okay, so links to those books, I'll have those in the show notes as well. And, of course, you know where to find it. You go to www.puertovallartatravelshow.com, where you'll find it there. If you were going to leave town for a day and come back, don't say you don't do that. Don't say you just go ahead and you live in your kitchen all day. So if you're going to leave for a day and come back, where would you go?
Well, I don't have a car, so I don't leave for a day. But for 3 or 4 days or 5, I would go to Guadalajara and Tlaquepaque and Tonalá. And if you haven't done that, I really suggest traveling to that area and plan a market day in Tonalá. Almost all of the Day of the Dead objects that you see on my altar, I picked up a couple of months ago in Tonalá at the Artisans Market, directly from the artists who have their little workshops there and set up a booth on the street. Beautiful hand-painted papier-mâché Day of the Dead skulls and Catrinas at prices 1/2 to 1/4 of what they cost here in Vallarta. It's always fun for me to talk to the artist and get to know their story and remember the faces of the people who made those pieces. It makes the experience of celebrating Day of the Dead and opening up the foam-wrapped statues every year, it makes it much more rich.
Yeah. You'll remember back when I was in Tonalá.
And not to forget San Juan de Dios Market in Guadalajara. Dios mío. What a fabulous market. I think it's 4 stories, a whole city block. Whatever you like from any part of Mexico, you can probably find it there. And a marvelous food market where you can eat the regional dish, birria. Birria is a kind of a stew, a soup stew. And the regional one is made of goat, not of beef.
Right.
The best of artisans and food and crafts and traditions, costumes, embroideries, straw items, which still are made in some towns, although no longer here. Shoes, leatherwork from all over Mexico are available in the San Juan de Dios Market in Guadalajara.
Nice. All right. That's a great tip. Now, when you go there, what do? Do you take a tour? You hop on a bus? What do you do?
I take several empty bags. Now, since we're now in October, and many people will be coming soon for the season, there's also a Christmas market, the Tonalá Market, that I believe is 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday, I believe, now becomes an all-day-long and night market where Christmas figures are made. For $1 or $2, you can buy a clay or pottery handmade creche figure. So I have a creche that I set out that contains areas from all over the world, even from Saudi Arabia, from Egypt. There are Bedouins on their camels going to visit baby Jesus. From El Salvador, there are witches and goblins, etc. And in Tonalá, you can find an extraordinary selection of Christmas items in the market, on the street, all through the month of December. I would really recommend that to anyone.
Right on. And I think they're almost done with that highway, aren't they, to Guadalajara?
Yeah. Right now, it's 40% of the road is quota. I think maybe with the new section, perhaps it'll be 60%. But both roads have their enchantment, depending on which, and both are very safe.
Yeah.
I have not heard of any problems on these roads. So it's a 5-hour trip. I go by bus.
Mm-hmm.
At the bus costs, I believe it's $25. If you have your senior card, it's half of that. I would recommend that you stay in Tlaquepaque.
And that's not AARP, you guys, okay? Don't get away with that. All right, I'm sorry.
So I would recommend you stay close to the plaza in Tlaquepaque. For Westerners, it's just very nice to wander around this artsy, craftsy town. and have wonderful food in old mansions that have been turned into restaurants with musicians, etc. But then you're close to Tlaquepaque is now a suburb of Guadalajara, as is Tonalá. So in 20 minutes, you're in the downtown area, the San Juan de Dios market, I believe it's Siqueiros paintings, in the what used to be an orphanage, the Man of Fire murals on the ceiling. But in another 20 minutes, you're in Tonalá. So those three cities are now form Greater Guadalajara. So stay in Tlaquepaque and shop there, but first check out the Tonalá market and do your Christmas shopping there. Then finally, last stop, the San Juan de Dios market in Guadalajara. Whatever you didn't find directly from the artist, then you can buy it there in the little shops in San Juan de Dios and eat birria.
Be sure to eat birria. Don't be a goat. If you had a word of advice to a first-time visitor to Puerto Vallarta, what would it be?
Don't worry about the water. I recall when my daughter was planning her wedding here a year ago. She actually wrote to all of her wedding guests and said, "You can't drink the water." Well, water in restaurants is served out of the garrafon of pure water. So in any restaurant, you can ask for agua natural, not to worry about that. You don't have to buy a bottle of water. In the restaurants, they pour your water from the larger the bottle of purified water. So it's one tiny detail that was of concern to my daughter, but no need. It's a very secure town. I walk around at night. I take the buses at night. I'm very, very comfortable, even as a senior.
Yeah. Well, could have fooled me. Oh, wait a minute. They're going to call me senior pretty soon. Never mind. Oh, God.
Well, in Mexico, they talk about the tres edades. The first edad is children of the age that attend school. And there's the segunda edad, which are adults. Tercera edad, the third age, is anyone over 60.
Yeah.
So
I win. Do you have a word of warning for anybody coming to visit Puerto Vallarta?
I cannot think of any negative except the common one when you arrive in the airport. Avoid what I believe you call the sharks.
The Shark Tank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just walk straight through the first room where people are trying to sell you timeshares. Avoid that. I mean, all of us have thought, we can win this game. We can get those free tickets or whatever it is. Just avoid it.
It's
okay?
not worth a minute of your time, and not it.
No,
it's
absolutely not. And I would say, if you're an all-inclusive person, well, you've made that decision, but there's no reason to stay in an all-inclusive. It's an easy town. Everyone is very helpful. Easy to walk around, to use the buses, friendly residents who are there to give you a hand. Even the taxi drivers are marvelous. If you prefer Uber, actually I do like taxis because they're better informed.
Yeah.
They can take me directly to whatever I'm looking for, and the Ubers are just many times not even locals. But that's up to you. No need to stay in an all-inclusive. Come and enjoy the warmth, the amazing beaches, if that's what you like, and the wonderful people of Puerto Vallarta.
Fantastic. Is there something that I've forgotten? Is there something that you might want to add?
I really can't think of anything to add, Barry. I spent one night in Puerto Vallarta and, like many other people, fell in love with it and bought a property. Started on that the following day.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very happy here. So welcome to all of you who similarly see the enchantment of the city. It's a great place in a wonderful country.
That it is. All right, so Ryan, remind everybody once again how they find your Facebook page. It's called
Vallarta Abuelos, or the Cultural Tour of Vallarta. It's actually Vallarta Artisans, but just remember, Cultural Tour of Vallarta. It's the only one. And Vallarta Abuelos.
Okay, very good. I'll have links to those in the show notes as well. I'm going to have links to Anne-Marie's books also in the show notes. I'll have her beautiful smiling face. I'm going to put I'll put that altar. I'll take a picture of that altar so that you guys can see what that looks like. And remember that if you have something coming up, Anne-Marie, just let me know so I can tell my audience anytime, and we will announce whatever's going on. We're happy to help, and I'm just so thrilled to have been able to have this opportunity to sit with you and have that opportunity to introduce you to my listeners, and I truly appreciate that.
No, I appreciate all that you do for the community. I know it's very hard when you're here on a short trip to set up so many things, so many interviews, but we really thank you for all that you do, and especially for permitting me to talk about the children and Vallarta Abuelos. Thanks again.
It is my pleasure. Thank you. Wow. You know, who of us really knows about the challenges of common Vallartans, the common Mexicans, the people that we interact with every day, the challenges that they have in getting their children educated? It's really quite interesting. And it's really great to know that we can actually help in a number of ways. The best way, of course, seems to be to take that great tour, the cultural tour, or go to the Abuelos page and figure out how you can donate and help a child with a bicycle or a book backpack or any number of things that they're working on right now. I also heard that they're looking for some personal flotation devices, life vests, for kids to take sailing lessons. So if you have a decent life vest that you can bring and donate, hey, they can use one of those too. I have links to all of the things that Anne-Marie talked about in the show notes, including her books. So how about that? So make sure that you go there, like the Facebook page, and you will get notifications when they are going to be having their tours. Anyway, I guess that should do it for this week. Next week, please stay tuned for more on-the-ground reports from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with travel tips, great restaurant excursion ideas, and more. But until then, remember that this is an interactive show where I depend on your questions and your suggestions about all things Puerto Vallarta. If you think of something that I should be talking about, well, please reach out to me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending us your message. Remember, if you're considering booking any type of tour while you're in Puerto Vallarta, you need to go to vallartainfo.com, that's JR's website, and reserve your tour through him right from his website. Remember, this is a value-for-value proposition, my friends. His experience and on-the-ground knowledge of everything Puerto Vallarta in exchange for your making a purchase of a tour that you would do anyway. You're just doing it through him as a way of saying, thanks. Thanks, JR, for being our guide. It costs no more than if you're going to use someone else, so just do it, really. And when you do take one of these tours, email me about your experiences. Maybe you can come on board and share with others what you liked or didn't like about the tour. Again, contact me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending off a message. And don't forget, he has his maps, his DIY tours, his revitalized happy hour board, and more. And I have links to all of these in the show notes. And once again, if you like this podcast, please take the time and subscribe and give me a good review on iTunes or, well, wherever you happen to listen to the podcast. That way we can get the word out to more and more people about the magic of this place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And remember, I made it easy for you to do just that with every episode I create. But if you haven't been to my website, you need to have a look there. I have links to the places that we talk about, interesting pictures and more, all right there in my blog posts and in the show notes for each episode of the show. So check them out for sure if you haven't already. All right? All right. If you are in town, make sure that you get over to the Brewmaster Festivals. Get over to the Taco Festival. Meet Marvin, the Taco Lady. Gourmet Festival, too. Don't forget that. And, hey, thanks to you, Anne-Marie Weiss Armush. Check out the Thursday Artisan Tour. Like the Facebook page and get notifications. Check out the Vallarta Abuelos. Really. Help them buy bikes and help them buy bags for the kids. I have links in the show notes. Make sure you check them all. And hey, thanks to all of you for listening all the way through this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. This is Barry Kessler signing off with a wish for all of you to slow down, be kind, and live the Vallarta lifestyle. Nos vemos. Amigos.
De Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de amor junto al mar. Solo camino, perno por la playa, me encuentro junto al río, cuando todo está en calma, pronto cae la noche, brillas Puerto Vallarta, samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar, samba de Puerto